wimbo ninaimba sio wimbo ni maombi, nikiomba Mwenyezi Mungu aibariki Kenya yangu, kwa jina la Baba na la Mwana Roho Mtakatifu, amina. Kwa jina la Baba na la Mwana Roho Mtakatifu, amina. Ewe Kenya nchi yangu, ewe Kenya baba yangu, ewe Kenya mama yangu, sitakuacha milele.
Thank you very much. So the chairman has said security of tenure is not found in written law, it is found in your performance. Secondly, the constitution says you vote in 1 day, but says the results can be spread over 7 days. But the commission has decided that those results must also be given. Would you prefer 2 days or 1 day?
1 day.
1 day. 1 day. Although we are given 7 days, we'll give it to you in 1 day, yeah. The second round of questions, it is 8:30 now. Could this be the last one? Yes. All right, fine.
Yeah, mine is a brief question. Yeah, the presentation here today, I think most of the hurdles that you have described to us today, all the challenges hinge on financial constraints to fund diaspora voting. Is there a possibility in the Kenyan Constitution or Kenyan law that would allow us to pay for us to vote in the diaspora? I think most of us here are fair. We understand that it will bring the elections to us. You're bringing it to our doorsteps. Obviously, the cost of voting for people in Kenya compared, if it was to be brought here, it would be more expensive for the commission to bring the elections here in terms of ballot transportation and hiring staff to manage the elections here. I think most of us would be willing to pay a fee.
No.
No? No, I think it's a consideration. I think instead of having us go to Kenya to vote, obviously it will cost us a couple of $1,000s to go to Kenya to vote, as opposed to have us voters vote here. It's a consideration I think you should consider.
Very well, that is a comment. The next one, His Excellency the Ambassador had said earlier on that we must hold a civilized conversation. So let's get to that. That was a comment, and anyone with a different view can be at yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.
Is that a question or a comment?
I want to say hello and welcome. Welcome to our city. Yeah. Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ambassador Nzibo. Thank you, our precious Ambassador Otembo. What I can comment, one comment is, if we want to be successful and very successful, the ambassador brought the conference here is the only person who can get the Kenyans. Otherwise, tripod will never be out of us. We may, no matter what we may do. My question is, what protection, Mr. Chairman? Looking, my nephew was killed in the last election, 2007. What protection are you looking at preventing through education outreach to train people to stop violence before election? We are talking about voting and we don't know what the outcome will be. What are you thinking to do about that as the new chairman now, so that it will be a safe election? Secondly, I'm a Kenyan businesswoman based here in the United States, a non-profit and a profit. What could I do with you to make through education, outreach, and observation of election? Now that we have listened to wonderful speech you've given, I think we can do the observation and training and outreach here. But how are we going to get the funding? Who is going to give the funding? Ourselves? We look for it, or are you going to support us? Most of what I had to say, because the ambassador said we have to obey the rule and we obey him as our good ambassador, I'm giving you this information in front of him. Mr. Chairman, you will go and read in your office when everybody is here. So thank you so much and welcome. We hope we will collaborate and make Kenya a better Kenya and a good election with a young chairman of the Electoral Commission.
Thank you.
I think that
one of the key to holding a successful, at least one of the keys to holding a successful diaspora election is a very credible system of voter registration. I think that if you had ample time and had enough Kenyans come, whether physically to register in advance, a year in advance, you said it takes about that much time, then they could vote electronically from anywhere in this country or anywhere else in the world that they were. But I think that having a voter roll that is beyond impeachment is like very important. And secondly, it's like I want to ask also what's going on with registration in terms of like identification cards, because I personally don't have one. I applied for one last year. I don't know how many people in this room have an ID card, and so we're basically disenfranchised in that sense. Thank you.
Right.
The chairman made a reference to the origin of diaspora. And my comment is this word diaspora was associated with the Jews in the dispersal. And it has some negative connotation, eventually led to the Holocaust. Now, many countries seeing this, like China, refer to their people overseas as overseas Chinese, Indians also overseas Indians. So I'm glad to hear the Constitution says of Kenyans abroad. I think we should avoid using this word diaspora because you don't want to commit the next generation down the road to be perceived as they don't belong, which is the connotation of it. They belong wherever they are, they just happen to be abroad. So I suggest as you draft your documents and give presentation, we avoid using this word. The proper word is Kenyans overseas or Kenyans abroad, Africans overseas or Africans abroad is the proper terminology. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you. Honorables, my name is Pam Sichene from DC, and based on what you've stated this evening, I personally have a comment, and the comment is that I am not seeing the feasibility of actually having us abroad voting next year. Based on what you say, Mr. Chairman, you say political realities, that's what you like, and I think we have to be realistic with the fact of timelines. There's no funding, number one. That's just a bottom line. It is our constitutional right for the government to provide us ways and means for us to vote. We cannot pay to vote. So the question becomes, where are the resources? Number one, you say that to have the parliament, they have to vote and actually give us permission to actually vote next year. So if these suggestions has to be taken to the parliament and then again voted on, it's going to take another 3 months. So I think we should have a realistic plan and tell us the truth and tell us on the broad side that we can have a 6-year plan, the next election 2017, and not next year. I think you should be realistic. I would be safe to be realistic because right now in Kenya, I went to Kenya 6 months ago, and the situation is still very good, but not so perfect. Why not focus on perfecting the system in Kenya, and then 2017, we can perfect doing something abroad. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and the entire team.
Excuse me, let's listen to him.
Reverend Andrew Mwell, I want to thank everybody. Mine is just comment. One, I want to encourage every diaspora or Kenyans who is here, and also the team which has come here, is that together we can achieve a lot. We have seen the young team even 3 weeks in office, and they are determined. They are here to get our support and suggestion. One thing I know is, for example, let's look at the US. The US in general can be divided into 9 geopolitical zones. It can be very simple to identify where the Kenyans are. The major from northeast, if you look at from Boston to New York, that can be one block. And we have divided actually the whole diaspora into 20 zones. In the US alone, there are 9. Outside Canada, which is like the 10th. And then you can go on and on. The diaspora is easy to organize, and we have the electronic. We are talking of electronic registration. Almost Kenyans outside Kenya has a computer and a set of laptop. What we are saying is this thing can be done in 2012. The key thing is working with your team and the diaspora leadership this is not a big thing. But what we are saying is we need to start now. You can start a secretariat here in the US and you can get backup. I worked with a Southern Sudan referendum with the Ambassador Ezekiel, and they had 8 regions, and I watched. They did not use the embassy to vote. They had voting stations outside. The churches were used. They used everybody with the IOM. I went with these community leaders, and I saw how they did it. Southern Sudan, they don't have much as Kenya we have, and it was a successful referendum. Every Sudanese, they were moving from even, let's say, California. The nearest station was in Arizona, Phoenix. They left to go there because this is historical. Diaspora, this is a challenge. We can work with this team. I know it can be is workable, and it determined we can do it. Thank you.
Hallelujah.
My name is Erastus Mungara. Mine is simple. Based on the presentation that you've made, obviously there are many challenges that your team has to overcome before next year's elections. My question directly to the chairman: what is the biggest challenge that you foresee happening, and what legacy as the chairman do you want to leave after your work is done?
Erastus, with regard to diaspora or with regard to the elections 2012?
Yeah, just election
general. My name is Kenyans. I think it's very simple. All we have to do, Mr. Chairman, we need to start now and have those who are interested to vote, because I believe as Kenyans, as much as the country has worked and our forefathers shed their blood, we need to sacrifice. So, like our sister said, if we have to pay, so be it. We have to sacrifice something. You sacrifice your families, you're working for our government. As citizens, I also believe we should sacrifice. So let's start voters registration so that when the MPs see how many people have registered, they will get the message we are serious, and it's simple and clear. All we have to do is send voters ballot here, and we can register on the internet, and then when we send our voters to the embassy, we can put that number on the internet. Then you, the chairman, you have the website to know this voter, he or she voted, and they posted the ballot to the embassy. So then correspond. Then we can have, they can choose among us those who are going to open the ballot here. Then once they count the ballot, you with your website go to the website and correspond the counting, whether the one on the internet correspond with what the embassy counted. So that way you have 2 backup systems. I think it's like our brother Moel said, it's very easy. It can be done. Let's do it. I don't think it's hard than our forefathers fought for the freedom. So let's get it done. Thank you.
Okay, yes.
Good evening. I'd just like to say thank you. My name is Kevin Garrett. I just have a small comment. We have to stand for our nations. We are here. We have been here for many years. And for you to come to this country to ask us to stand for our own country, it's very, we are very thankful for that. And we need to take the initiative and say, even if it will cost us $20, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
I would be more than happy to pay $200 just to sign up to be a member, to vote every year that I get a chance to vote. And that's my comment. We should stand for our country.
I feel like, I wasn't going to say anything more, but I feel like I need to make this comment since this keeps coming up. And I hope, people will appreciate and understand this. Voting is a right, and it's not based on financial means. We do understand there are constraints. There are constraints also for Kenyans within Kenya in terms of voting. But you don't see Kenyans in Kenya saying that we'll pay to make it to the ballot. I think what it underlines is that we're desperate. We really want to exercise this right. So if you could take that into consideration and facilitate that, but then within the proper policy process, while also respecting our rights, that we should be able to vote without paying to vote. Thank you.
And also tell us your budget. We know to add.
All right. We respond to those. Is there?
I hope mine was written. We want to know which one.
Okay. That one we will answer. Yes, please.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Mwavua, and I have a comment. When a commissioner, the challenge is great. And so I think with a great challenge is a great opportunity. Since we're in America, I'll quote an American president, John F. Kennedy, who said, "Ask not what your country will do for you, but what you will do for your country." So I'd like to challenge each of us, instead of asking answers, let's think of solutions. How can we help? How can we facilitate? It will take all of us, okay? So here's another chance again for us to form nationhood. It's one thing to say you're a Kenyan, it's another thing to be a Kenyan. We're debating whether or not we should pay for voting or the cost of voting, or it's a right. Well, why can't you just donate? If you care so much about the right to vote, I'm sure the commission can give us a means. There is a fund. So I think that issue is resolved right there. Also, I'll just say this last thing. Technology is important. We see how there's great companies like Microsoft, which has the Internet Explorer, and we see to browse the internet, and we have Firefox, which is crowdsourced. Anybody willing can go there, write code, and adjust it. If you put in malicious code, somebody else corrects that. There's even a book titled The Wisdom of Crowds. I appreciate, for the first time, I came here when I was 17 years old, and I have never voted in my life. I pay taxes here. I send money home every single year. Right? So, if we can use the wisdom of crowds to get solutions to these challenges, and maybe to even add extra weight to any initiative that the commission takes, we can use online polling and perhaps text polling to say, hey, these are some options after we've heard. Collectively, what do you think you want? And I'll just stop there. But I'm willing, in any way, shape, or form, to do everything I could possibly do to help. Thank you.
We can respond.
Yes. Ambassador, you want to start? No, you go. Then we start with the Immaculate Lady. Okay. Good.
I'll probably just pick on some of the issues. One of the issues is working with the diaspora media. Certainly one of the things that this fact-finding assessment mission was to hear what are the possible areas that you can easily reach out to Kenyans. Because obviously in terms of voter registration, we are very keen to work with as many media, whether it is social media, whether it's mainstream media, in terms of reaching out to as many Kenyans as possible. So those kind of ideas are most welcome. The other issue that I'm going to pick up on is the issue of working with other organizations. We did say that those are possibilities and that will form the final decision. Countries like Sudan used IOM, and I did say the reason why they used IOM. In other countries, they use embassies. That is a decision that the Commission will make eventually, which way to go. And it's important to recognize that we do have a mission here. The question is to what extent that would, in terms of the access to the registration center, how feasible that is. But those are decisions made on some of the initial preliminary work on surveys in terms of the numbers and who is registered. Because you will need, in some countries, maximum polling station has 400. In our case, we are looking at 300. In the diaspora, that might change. So what space do we have, and how do we partner with organization can actually facilitate this process. The other thing is about registration online. I think this is an issue of the legislative framework. It's important that we do not lose sight of that. Like the chairman said earlier, we would all want to do online voting. And in fact, in terms of logistics, that brings our work drastically down in the cost of elections. The reality of it is that within now in 2012, legislative framework to enable voting online may not be a possibility. Actually, so we have to be realistic about that. Most likely we are going to use ballots, which are paper ballots. That is the way it looks like as it is. Towards 2012, it's a possibility, but for now, online voting is not a possibility. The issue about registration of people in the diaspora, issue of ID cards, I think that's a problem that cuts across. It's going on. I think the ministry already said they're dealing with that issue, and it could be something that could affect the diaspora. In terms of online registration, let me say this. The aspect about why it is you have to present yourself physically to register, we did say earlier, it's the issue of capturing your biometrics. And the chairman has emphasized why we are interested in capturing your biometrics is one way of enhancing credibility. That also says that when we decide how we'll do it, then most likely it's going to be capturing of biometrics, meaning you have to present yourself physically to a polling station, registration center. We will capture your data, we will capture your biometrics, and then that way we'll be able to compile the voters' roll. The other question that was asked that I would probably leave for the chairman to speak to it, but like just to give a general overview, like many nations, every country would like to run its election funded by the treasury. I think that is the thing that is underlying because of sovereignty issues and the pride of a nation. But I'll leave the chairman to respond to that question further. The other question that was asked is his biggest challenge. I think that one you'll respond to. We understand the challenges, we understand the issues raised here, and we will try as much as possible as we do our own assessment to see what is viable within this short time, in the coming year.
I think what is important is for us to read what the Constitution provides, and also what does the Election Act provide. It is important because we keep hearing about electronic voting, internet voting. So it's important for you to understand, because the role of the Commission is to go by what the law says, because anything can be challenged. If we don't follow the rules and regulations as laid out, it can be challenged. But that does not also preclude you from making suggestions in terms of the reforms that are required to make it easier, because the Constitution talks about making it easy and simple, but credible. And therefore it is important for all of you to download the Constitution, the Elections Act, and the Political Parties Act, and read it properly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions and comments you have made. I think this is a very useful discussion that we are having today. And I think, Ambassador, thank you very much for convening this meeting. I guess we are almost achieving our objective, because it was meant to be a listening session, a consultation. And I think I will begin by saying I have got so many questions to answer, but let me just begin with the first one. I don't think you have to pay for it. This is a constitutional right, a fundamental right given to you by the Constitution. So, but of course, there is the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Fund, which is set by law, where the government puts money, where donors like USAID, like IFS, other international bodies, they also put funds into that fund. And the commission the secretary is actually the accounting officer, and he manages the fund. So the fund, unlike government money, which after every financial year, if you have not spent the money, it goes back to treasury. This time this is a fund. So whatever is remained there actually remains there, so that you can carry forward your programs. So it allows the commission to have that kind of fund, which you can even accept donations and other forms of support from both Kenyans and non-Kenyans. So it is something which, apart from not paying for voter registration, because that's something unconstitutional. But as a Kenyan, I think you can contribute to the fund, to the Electoral fund. That's something which, even as a diaspora, not necessarily as individuals, but as a community, can come together and say, we are sending you $1 million shillings, just to help you in as part of your, because we are going to be going to other states, we are going to be hiring halls, we are using taxpayers' money to come here and do this. So you can also as well contribute in that respect. But I don't think we will insist that you pay for voter registration or voting, because that's something which the commission, the government, has to pay for. Now, prevention of violence.